We've all had that feeling when you're watching a brand new fantasy show. You sit down, feastables in one hand and the remote in the other, and start watching. But as you continue to watch, you start to recognize the same things from other shows you've already watched. The same German-style houses in a city that is surrounded by a giant wall. The same magic system where every spell is cast by a simple word, but the summoning circle looks insanely intricate as if an artist designed it. The same adventurers guild, the same guards, the same illegal demon lollies. Eventually, you give up trying something new, and you then decide that this show is too boring and you will watch One Piece again for the 17th time. So why did you drop this new show? Why does it feel the same as everything else? Sure, the story is bland and boring, but at least it is the tiniest bit different from other shows, where this one has a shield, this one is an assassin, and this one has a pussy for a main character. So what else makes all these shows so similar? There are many reasons why these shows are so similar, such as writing choices and character designs. But I believe that one aspect that is overlooked a lot is the world building of these shows. The worlds feel so similar that you could take one of the main characters out of one show and put them in another show and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It's like they're all part of one big union where they all share the same currency, ideas, weapons, and demons. So why do most of these stories fall flat when it comes to world building, and why are there only a few shows that have actually put thought into them? Well, this isn't an issue that you see worldwide. Generally, this is only really an issue in Japan and the East rather than in the West. You'll notice that a lot of Western shows and stories, there is at least a small amount of effort put into each story to make it unique in terms of world building. Like, at least some creatures or races or magic is unique to that setting. But with Japan and the East in general, a lot of the shows feel as if they are just carbon copies of one another from the same world. And I know that there are still dog stories in the West, and the reason that a lot of our shows feel different is survivorship bias, of course. But even then, compared to anime, most popular shows, or slightly popular shows, they all still feel the same. And one reason why is probably how Japan treats new series in general. You have definitely seen where a new series starts on Shonen Jump or another platform and you start reading it. It isn't as fast-paced as its contemporaries, but you can definitely tell it is building up to something big with massive passion behind it. You excitedly read the chapters, seeing genuine passion put into every page. But then, cancelled. Or when one of your favorite series of all time is still in the middle of its run with multiple story arcs and unresolved ideas still out there. But then they announce that the series is ending in 5 chapters and the ending feels like it was written by a person high on Adderall about to die.
Oh, ladder. I can just climb that.
A lot of series feel as if they are cut short before they can truly shine or develop. And this is a big issue in Japan, I see. If a series is not popular enough, or if it isn't bringing in enough money, it is cut. The higher-ups at these Japanese companies just want to see numbers and not true creativity. And this feels like such a waste. Just imagine all the incredible stories we could see, but because of this culture of perfectionism and greed, they are just never made. And it's not like in the West where stories are allowed to slowly develop over time, because in the West, we love slow burn stories and we give them the time and money to make up those stories. And that isn't to say that there aren't amazing slow burn shows that take a while to set up their main ideas in anime and manga. Oh, come on! But it definitely feels like the minority. So why does this perfectionism culture relate to terrible world building in anime? Well, it's because authors and manga artists are incentivized to make the most aura-farming hype show possible, so that the show isn't cancelled and can get popular enough, allowing them to continue making their story. And in order to make these hyper-popular shows, they need to sacrifice a few elements of their stories to make it work so they can continue releasing it consistently. And the main one I see is world building. I mean, you have to do a bit of world building in order to make your show interesting in the first place, but the way it is implemented, it just feels lazy. It's the same basic template that all these series use. The high fantasy setting of isekai, the game mechanics and dungeons in manhwa, and cultivation in manhwa. It's like a stupid side quests for these authors where you have to do them before you progress onto the actual quest, which is writing your story. And to be fair, the main point of a show is to tell a story. And if world building is unimportant to that setting, then who gives a about how much thought you put into it? I highly doubt that a cooking show set in a fantasy setting needs to world build an entire language to make the show feel immersive about racism. I'm here about some beautiful looking food, not to hear Bungus and Bingus speak a language that I'll never learn or understand, and it's translated for me anyway. And a show I think is the pinnacle of this idea of tell a story, don't world build, is Frieren. If you look, all the magic buildings and places are what you would consider stereotypical high fantasy. The houses look German, the species are the standard Lord of the Rings species, like elves, dwarves, dragons. It definitely has better world building than most fantasy anime you see, with the world's politics and the demons, Oriel and its interesting magic system, but it isn't anything that absolutely blows you away. But it doesn't need to blow you away with its complicated world building. You watch Frieren to journey along with the gang and experience the ups and downs of each character's arc. It's literally called Frieren Beyond Journey's End, where they have already gone through the world and explored all of its nooks and crannies. And because its story is so good, most people don't even care about the world. But for the majority of fantasy, most of the stories involve the main protagonist heading out on a quest to save the world from the Demon Lord, or to save the dying kingdom by explaining common sense to a dumb as king. Well, most kings are dumb as Like, look at all the inbreeding. And if these stories want to do more than feel like a cardboard cutout of a show, they have to do a decent amount of world building to at least save them from being boring and being different from other shows. And the world building doesn't have to be an entirely new world that's built from the ground up, where the rotation of the stars is taken into account when deciding the biomes of the world, like Made in Abyss. It can still use the stereotypical high fantasy tropes, but in a new exciting way, specifically the way that Dungeon Meshi does it. For the entire story, it takes place in a massive dungeon, and inside of this dungeon, nearly every aspect has been taken into consideration when making the story. Nearly every single creature and location has a reason for being there, and they all have a purpose, even though they are using the normal monsters like dragons, kelpies, and golems. They each have been given a reason for existing, and when we learn of how and why they acted that way in the show, it feels like a breath of fresh air. And by constricting the story to just the dungeon, they also drastically reduce the amount of world building they actually have to show off. Because who knows what the dark elves are at this moment? We don't care, we're in the dungeon. For example, when Kablu's group is found dead lying with some money, the gang initially thinks that they were murdered for money, but is revealed that the money was what killed them, because the money is a monster. Okay then why would they take the money if it was dangerous? Well, it's because it's mixed in with real money, so you couldn't tell what was real and what's a monster. Well then, why is it with real money? Because it's inside a mimic, where mimics use it to attract prey. But why was the monster money still alive and the mimic dead then? Well, it's because the money actually hunts and lives inside mimics, so it gets mixed in with the real money. Dungeon Meshi takes a simple monster that is seen in every game and show and makes an entire life cycle out of it. It takes what has been used before and reimagines it. And that's all these shows need to do. Slightly reimagine a basic mechanic or creature and voila, you have something better than 99% of other shows. But as I stated before, the anime and manga industry doesn't care about this, because if the show isn't popular, it gets cut. And currently, these over-the-top power fantasies with basic stories and worlds are incredibly popular right now in Japan and the East. And this is the other side of the coin when it comes to why so many shows have terrible world building. It's just what's popular. In Japan, people are being literally worked to death of a population that's so old that young people feel as if they're an afterthought, and societal expectations that would crush the average Reddit user dreaming of their kawaii, dekai, oppai, nihon, kanojo. Me. I hate that. So, what do they do after a long day of working their butts off for a company that makes them pay for being late? They watch or read a show that they know is going to have all the basic things they want. Why would you waste your time and risk reading a new show with original world building that might be cut in 5 chapters? Just read the manga that is comfortable and easy to read, and that you know isn't being cut. And this is another reason that Frieren and Dungeon Meshi are popular. They're close enough to the standard fantasy show that they don't feel like a risk to watch, and they are actually good shows. Just imagine all the other fantasy anime out there that have the craziest story you've ever seen, but because it is too different from what you're used to, it isn't popular. Like, one of my favorite fantasy manga at the moment is something called Yakuza Reincarnated. an isekai. But this one is different, I swear, in that the world actually feels like it has been designed from the bottom up, borrowing elements from stereotypical fantasy. Like, when was the last time you saw a Dutch-style Windmolen in your anime? Like, you never see that kind of stuff. Or how characters snort cocaine in order to get stronger. Or how the practical Vatican is on the back of a giant walking tortoise. God, that is such a cool trope. These all feel slightly familiar with all the things you recognize, but they have been implemented in a way that makes sense and feel refreshing to see, rather than just making every town either German town 435 or Japanese town 214. I mean, Yakuza does have these kind of towns, but it makes up for this by implementing world building so incredibly well. For example, in the show, people are born with a magic tree inside of their arm. This determines what kind of magic you have, and it is permanent. And in order to get into the holy city, you need to prove that you have magic. So how do you do that? You make flowers come out of your arm and parade it around. But what if you don't have a magic tree or flower? Don't worry, because if you're rich, you can just pay a poor person to give you theirs. And this also kills them. Like Dungeon Meshi, Yakuza, it takes many key features of traditional fantasy, but remixes them into a new and fresh idea. But because it isn't similar to the status quo of what an isekai is meant to be, it is nowhere as popular as its contemporaries. I mean, it came out in 2019 and has pretty much 3 full seasons of content available. Like, the chapters are massive. But instead of this getting an adaptation, we get a show about a salaryman in another world. Again. And this one came out at the same time as Yakuza in 2019. But this is what is chosen to be adapted. The simple basic show, instead of a show that takes a risk. At least Yakuza is pirated. So how are we going to fix this issue? To be honest, I have no clue. The only thing that is going to change these shows is time. Eventually, these shows will fall out of fashion, and they will be replaced by new things, as all things inevitably are. And the way you can support the shows that you actually like with good world building and stories is just by watching them. I've already thrown in my 2 cents for Yakuza, but it doesn't really matter what kind of show it is. Like, the new Sentence to be a Hero is a good choice, I personally don't like it. But don't feel like you have to force yourself to watch these shows either. At the end of the day, the reason these slop isekai shows in fantasy are so common is because people love watching them. And there are still plenty of amazing shows out there with deep ideas that are insanely popular, so it doesn't really matter. So what's even the point of this video? These shows still have better animation than One Punch Man Season 3 though.